Hey, what's going on, guys? Alex here with English Sports Center, and today we're going to go over some of the rods and reels that we have here in the store that we recommend for your yellow perch slash any kind of pan fishing going on. As we get into the winter months, we start fishing a lot more for panfish, and one of the most popular panfish to chase around here in the tidal creeks or some of the ponds and lakes are yellow perch. Obviously, we're going to utilize the same gear for a lot of the other panfish, whether you're fishing for bluegill, crappie, white perch, yellow perch, etc. So we're going to show you a couple different options here and go over why, some of them work great for certain things and whatnot. So let's start off with the reels here. Right here we have a spread of reels anywhere from your entry point level, middle to higher price point end here, and we're going to show you and go over the differences here. So we'll start off on this side here with one of them that is probably your most price point friendly entry level reel, and that is a Daiwa Crossfire. Now this reel is really affordable. It's going to be roughly about $40 in price point. And it's really lightweight. It's a graphite frame. Small little 1,000 size and 2,000 sizes is what we're looking for when we're chasing after most of these smaller fish in the winter. Line capacity is not a big issue with them. We obviously they're not pulling that much line, and most of these will have a smaller, shallower spool. So with most of these reels, you're going to be utilizing anywhere from your 2-pound test all the way up to 8-pound test, depending on what you're doing, what techniques, and where you're fishing based on structure. The Crossfire right here is going to be kind of like your price point friendly reel. It's a cross lock handle on here. It's going to be just enough to get you any kind of little panfish here. Drag pressure on this is not a lot, but once again, not needed. This is kind of your standard stuff with a sink metal gear on there. And once again, it's pretty light. It will match up with most of these short rods. Once we go up to your middle price point and higher up price points, but right now talking about this middle price point here, this is the Daiwa Legalis. And this really is really lightweight. This is where you're getting into a different frame material, and you're using some of these carbon, composite frames, which make them really light. And what that means is, besides being physically lighter than your other reels, it also transmits the sensitivity a little bit better through the rod and whatnot. Obviously, the lighter, the more sensitivity you're going to get. So when you're throwing certain lures, like just a small tiny jig head on the bottom with super light line, and you're bouncing on the bottom and you need to feel everything, something like this is what you want to go towards. Of course, you're getting upgraded mechanical features on here, like a heavier bell wire, upgraded drag materials here to your carbon fiber washers, and a little bit upgraded drag pressure, not by much. But besides that, this is going to be an awesome reel with a different rotor that's going to allow you to feel less of that resistance. It's going to feel a little bit smoother on there because it takes less inertia to turn that rotor. So we go up here, we're going to get into your high price point levels here, a little bit higher end reels, and most of this is going to be on your higher end parts. With this, you're getting a screw in handle. It's a direct contact. You're going to feel it. It's going to be smoother. You're going to be getting obviously a better gear material and whatnot, but once again, as you can see, we're staying within that size of 1 and 2,000. Some guys like to multi-purpose use this reel, so they'll have a 2,000 with a little bit deeper spool, just so they have a little bit more line capacity. But once again, with all of these reels, as you can see, we want to stay between a 1 and a 2,000 in a light frame, so you can cast all day and get the feel for those little bites. The most important thing that we're going to switch over, that I think it's the most important part of this type of fishing, depending on what technique you're doing, is going to be the rods. Sensitivity is a big factor depending on what technique you're using. A lot of us are throwing small little shad darts or jigs on the bottom and bouncing them on the bottom with a little plastic, or, you know, suspending them on a bobber, throwing small little plugs like some of the small little crankbaits and whatnot, or small spinners. So a lot of that stuff, especially with cold water when you're slowing down, comes down to sensitivity. So if you're doing some of those techniques, you do want to have a nice sensitive rod that you can utilize during these winter months, and so you can identify those little bites. Now if you're going out there and just throwing a minnow under a bobber, you don't need anything special. You can get away with just about anything. And if you want to have fun, you obviously want to utilize a ultralight to light action rod, so you can feel the fight and enjoy catching those little fish throughout the season. Over here, we're going to go over one of my favorite rods that doesn't break the bank, and this is a Okuma Salilo. And what we're looking here for is an actual, ultralight light power rod that has a little bit more of a moderate fast taper, and that's going to allow you to, feel those fish, fight them a little bit more, have some fun with that. Whether it's a one piece or a two piece, that's a personal preference, and that comes down to you knowing the areas that you're going to be fishing. If you're going to be hiking into somewhere, if you need a two piece to transport the rod, or if you already have an area where you can storage the rod when you're moving around, driving and whatnot, then you might not need a two piece. But that's more of a personal preference. Now let's talk about a little bit of length with the rods themselves. If you're fishing tight quarters, a shorter rod's going to be better for you. If you're not casting out there, you don't need the distance. Then anywhere from like a little 5-foot rod to a 6-foot rod will be the best thing for you. Now, if you're fishing somewhere around, for example, some of these creeks where you're wading out a little bit and you got to get distance out there, then of course you might want to go to a longer rod, somewhere whether it's a 6.6 to a 6.9, even a 7-foot light or ultralight, so you can get a little bit of distance. And this is where we jump into some of these rods here. Like this is my other middle end rod here, and this is a Triumph from St. Croix, probably your best rod for the middle price point of, in the $100 to $120 price point. Nice and sensitive, blank, and we have those tapers that we talked about. Now, like we were speaking of, the length and whatnot, if you're casting some of those bobbers so you need the distance, and of course remember you want to get a little bit longer rod. And if you're doing something where you need the sensitivity, this is one of the best rods here. This is going to be a Daiwa Kage, and this is going to be a little ultralight rod that has a super sensitive blank, and it has some fused tip section here that you can see. It's really durable, but it also still transmits a lot of that sensitivity. So with that, you're not going to be, sitting there thinking that you're going to break this off if you hook something a little bit bigger, because it's nice and strong, and it's still going to transmit so much sensitivity to your hand, so you can identify those little bites when you're throwing stuff on the bottom and you need to feel everything on the water. So we went over some of the stuff here for rods and reels, guys. Remember, we have a lot more options in the store, so come by and check them out.